And welcome to Inside the Iggles Live. We appreciate you guys for taking some time out of your Monday to hang out with us. The trials of doing a live show. I just figured out just this second that I probably should have given the open to Brandon, Jake, Travis, or Jaleel because a thunderstorm started literally 30 seconds ago. That is not an exaggeration. I'm also watching NFL Total Access, and you guys know the joy that we have of doing live television and things of that nature and having live TV that we can pause. So I'm actually watching NFL Total Access, but I'm 30 minutes behind all of you guys because I decided to go make myself a sandwich. Then I forgot I was watching NFL Total Access. Next thing you know, you're 30 minutes behind schedule. And just as we're going live, I see Jonathan Gannon talking. It's not wearing off. This guy still annoys me. Two things can be accurate because some of y'all say I'm hypocritical. I tell y'all that Jonathan Gannon isn't as bad as some of y'all say he is. I still believe that. It's going to be hard to duplicate 70 sacks. It's going to be hard to duplicate what the secondary did as far as interceptions. It's going to be hard to duplicate some of these blowouts and 2 blowout victories in the playoffs and things of that nature. Does Jonathan Gannon suck? The answer to that question is yes. Was Jonathan Gannon better than we actually say he was sometimes? The answer to that question is also yes. Strange world we live in, isn't it? So before I blank out and you guys wonder what happened to me, I'm going to go ahead and call in the reinforcements. I got my main man, Jake Beckham. I got Brandon Pockris, Travis Williams, and my man. Hey, I just realized you guys got the last name as long as I didn't know y'all. Brothers from other mothers, Jaleel and Travis Williams. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on? What's going on?
You two are related, right?
Of course. Can't you see the resemblance?
Yep.
We both bleed green. That's all that matters.
Very glaring.
Weird as it sounds, man, as long as I know you guys, it just hit me today that you guys got the same last name. But welcome aboard, fellas. I'm going to try to stick with you guys as long as I can because this thunderstorm tends to knock out the electricity here for hours. So let's get into some Eagles football. It's Jalen Hurts' birthday. I started to bring some streamers, some balloons, all this stuff, and decided not to do that because I thought that might be corny. But welcome. Glad to see you guys. It seemed like it's been forever since the entire group's been together.
Doing good. I think we should all go around in a circle and say our favorite thing about Jalen. I'll start. It's his eyes.
I like that. I like that desire and that will to win, man. Like regardless of what people have always said about Jalen, I always knew Jalen was going to be good. I've always defended Jalen, and now he makes me look like a genius because when everybody else was doubting him, I was right. I was saying this type of guy is the guy you want to be your quarterback. He's too focused. He's too mature. He's probably the most mature mid-25-year-old person I've ever seen for in my life. So I'm glad he's our quarterback, man. And we'll get into some nightmare scenarios later, which probably include Jalen, but top 10 of the top 100s tonight. So I'm hoping that you're right, Jaleel, and he ends up in the number 1 spot.
Well, I don't know about yet, but next season he definitely will end up at that number 1 spot. And so you took his will, Jake. You took his eyes. I'll take his hairline. You know what I'm saying? He always got a great haircut. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate that. So that's the one that I'll stick with. Yeah. Happy birthday to Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Eagles. He's going to be leading us for a long time, fellas.
Hopefully.
I mean, for me, I'd probably have to go with like mental makeup. I mean, this is a guy that didn't let getting benched at Alabama affect him. Didn't let having to sit behind quarterbacks here in Philly bother him, and he's continuously gotten better every year. And I think that's one of, if not the best trait to have as an NFL starting quarterback.
For me, I'm going to say my favorite thing about Jalen Hurts is his press conferences. Every time he talks, every time he gets in front of the microphone, it just makes you want to run through a wall for him. And I wonder why he became the starting quarterback for us.
Yeah, a common day Shang Sun. Shang Tzu? I don't know. Whoever wrote that book.
Which one?
We actually did the roundabout like we said we were. I thought somebody was going to drop off here or there somewhere, but Jalen got a standing ovation at the first open practice of this. Is it only one this year, or do we have 2? It's just the one open practice yesterday? Okay, so we got the one open practice. Cool. And QB1 got the standing ovation. Brandon, you were there. I was not. It's hard for me to get stirred up about practice and things of that nature, but what was your biggest impressions of what you saw?
I mean, before we even get to any of the on the field stuff, I was legitimately in shock with how many fans were actually in the stands. And that's nothing to say anything about the Eagles fan base. But once again, this is not even a preseason game. This is a training camp practice. When I tell you basically the entire 100 level around the entire stadium was filled, was like you try to find a seat and it's just packed. There's nothing there. You have to go up to basically the 200 level to find seats. People were in the nosebleeds just trying to find room to sit. And the stadium was loud. The fans were engaged. They were all watching. And, if that's the type of environment that's going to be surrounding this Eagles team, I think that's a very good thing.
It's an exceptional thing. I mean, for years, the crowds have been playing a role for, opposing teams when they come into the home stadium. And they talked about the Seattle and the 12s and how crazy it is, Arrowhead, and how loud it is, and the advantage that gives the home team. There's definitely an advantage for the Eagles in Philly when the team is good. When the team is bad or even teetering, it can go either way, right? Because our fans will start to boo you as soon as you come out here and you start playing like trash. But when you're playing well and everybody is gassed up, man, that atmosphere, you already know, is nuts.
Yeah, 1,000%. And with the on the field stuff, I mean, the first thing that stood out to me, just watching the offense, defense go back and forth, Dallas Goedert looks, at least with the Eagles group, and maybe this is a tie-in to something we're going to talk about later in the show, looked borderline uncoverable. Basically, whenever Jalen Hurts wanted to throw him the football, Goddard was catching it. He had at least a step on the guy. He had at least, had the separation where maybe it didn't look open, but by NFL standards, he was open every single time. A.J. Brown's doing A.J. Brown things. Devonta Smith is doing Devonta Smith things. And that's what you expect out of your guys in that regard. You're expecting your superstar playmakers to be superstar playmakers. And all three of those guys, whether it was A.J. Brown just working the short part of the field and making some leaping catches, whether it's Dallas Goedert being open whenever Hurts needs them to be, whether it's Devonta Smith, what stood out to me, catching a drag route and turning on the Jets and just immediately turning a play for what I'd say like an average wide receiver would be 10 yards into a 25, 30-yard play. And that's all important stuff. DeAndre Swift worked in a 5-wide set, and Hurts found him on a nice pass. So that was a nice element to see that. It's early. We haven't seen a preseason game. Swift's already working in that receiving role where I think he could do a lot of damage. On the other hand, though, and this is something where I don't personally know how much stock to put into it, and I don't think there should be a lot of stock put into it. There were stretches of time where the Eagles' offense was just completely stymied by the Eagles' defense. There was a few series where it was basically 3 and out, or they got 1 first down, and then they went 3 and out. The receivers just weren't open, and Hurts would have had to try to scramble around to make something happen, or we would have been sacked. Or running plays or getting blown up in the backfield, and there was no room for the running backs to work. Or different things along those lines where the defense is giving zero room to operate. It wasn't just the ones. There was a series where the number 1 offense faced off against the number 2 defense. Number 2 defense forced them to go 3 and out. A lot of the plays being made when it wasn't really like short passes that turned into yards after catch. Marcus Mariota, which, I wouldn't say he looked even good passing the ball, looked electric running the ball. Just that type of speed where it's like, yeah, his arm might have deteriorated a little bit over time. He still has that same electric speed that he had coming out. Jalen Hurts had to make some things happen on the ground. But I'm very interested to see how it develops, where is the Eagles defense even better or even just the same as they were last year, to the point where a very talented Eagles offense just simply can't do anything against them? Does that mean Jordan Davis is taking that next step? Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith are going to play that big of roles? Or is it also a fact of the Eagles offense is going to go through some, growing pains, not having Steichen as that offensive coordinator anymore, having to really maybe implement a few tweaks here, a few tweaks there, and not hit the ground running like a lot of people may think. I don't know. I don't know either way, but I'm very interested to see it.
To me, I think that's one of those things where both things can be true. Obviously, we know that this offense is incredibly high-powered, but that does hearing that it's one of those things that makes you almost feel a little bit better about the defense. Like if it is one of these things where, I mean, obviously they're not throwing the whole playbook out there or anything like that, but when you know. If the defensive line is able to stop the offense or to get through the offensive line to shut run games or run plays down like that just kind of makes you feel good, especially coming off of the Super Bowl, coming off of last season when you're like, man, this defense is going to end up taking a step back. It's not going to be the same amazing defense that we had last year. You saw the Chiefs win a Super Bowl with an incredible offense and a lackluster defense. You're like, maybe that's what the Eagles are going to go to. Rely heavily on that offense to be dominant, and then have the defense not be terrible but be serviceable. If the twos are able to go out there and kind of show their stuff like that, it's one of those things like, I'll take that. I have the utmost trust in the offense. Maybe the losing Shane Steichen I think that will end up showing its teeth a little bit throughout the season, but I don't think it's anything to focus on too much now. I think that's just a kind of a lighthearted thing, something to be happy about with that defense.
I'm gonna pitch this to you guys. We had a couple of roster moves. Josh Andrews is back. I think this is his third stint with the team. I think I remember all three of them. One being the longest. Charleston Rambo is gone. Davion Taylor, former draftee, is gone. I'm probably still in the camp where I feel like we may see Davion Taylor again at some point. You know, when the Eagles tend to get in the pinch, and they tend to need to sign guys, they tend to go back to guys they already know. But I'm going to throw this to you first, Trav. You did a very excellent job of doing a 53-man roster projection, things of that nature. And if the team ends up looking the way that you said it looks, I'm going to be very satisfied. But now with the addition of Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham, are you really ready to make any changes to the linebacker room yet?
Yeah, definitely. I think for Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham, you look at guys who have over 600 tackles each in their career, and they just have an experience that the rest of the linebacker room really lacks. And I'd be shocked if really both of them didn't make the roster. I think they both really could come in, and even if they don't start, if they're backing up Nakobe Dean or Nicholas Morrow, they definitely have more experience than who we have right now. And they each signed a $2.5 million deal just for this year, and it's really, really low risk, high reward situation with both of them, and I'm excited to see him.
So you did 6 linebackers, if I'm not mistaken. So let me see if I can figure this. So we gonna put Nakobe Dean on the team. We all agree with that. That's probably pretty obvious.
Yeah.
We got Zach Cunningham. We got Miles Jack now. What are you thinking? So Nolan Smith, Hassan Reddick. Who's 6?
Yeah,
Christian Ellis.
I think Ellis is going to make it. Yeah.
Christian Ellis? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll be satisfied with that. This is my thing about Nicholas Morrow. Now, I don't know why nobody seems to notice this except me, John. I'm going to ask you, because you tend to pay attention to some of the same stuff I pay attention to. Does anybody beside me notice that Nicholas Morrow played for the Chicago Bears, and the Chicago Bears in with him? They just came and got our linebacker, T.J. Edwards. They got T.J. Edwards. They signed another guy. And we end up with the guy that started for them last year that they didn't want. Nobody knows this except me. Should I be worried? Like, we keep talking about Nicholas Morrow. We keep putting him in. It's like LB2, but why is nobody noticing that, they traded him out for T.J. Edwards?
Well, my question is, how impressed was everybody with T.J. Edwards?
I was impressed with T.J. Edwards.
Yeah.
Now, me and Jake were actually talking about this Friday, just to kind of answer your question, but it's kind of hard to tell sometimes because as much as the Eagles devalue the linebacker position, it's set up for the linebackers to get all the tackles. So we force the pocket in the middle. We send guys from the outside. We try to cover. And then the linebackers clean everything up. That's how you end up with Alex Singleton leading the team in tackles. I think was good, but not as good as he looked with us. And I think some of that kind of showed itself in Denver. But
I agree with that. And because of that reason, so we talked about this a little bit based on one of my other articles as well. And essentially, my feeling is the linebackers for the Eagles don't have to be Bobby Wagner, right? It'd be great to have a Bobby Wagner, of course, but that's not the necessity. It's not the focal point of the defense. The focal point is on that defensive line, so those guys need to eat up space to make it easier for the linebackers to run through those holes and clean up, make those tackles. And like you said, that's why they have so many tackles and lead the team in tackles, because they don't have to worry about shedding blocks as much, because those guys are too worried about Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox and Reddick and Josh Sweat and now Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. You just can't ignore those guys. They're too big. They're too disruptive. So I expect pretty much all of these linebackers, they need to be able to find the hole. My biggest concern with Nakobe Dean is his ability to not get lost in the wash, right? So if we're running stretch plays, the offenses, running stretch plays, zone plays out to the perimeter where he has to navigate through a little bit of traffic, can he do that successfully? That's my biggest concern with him. Other than that, these guys should be able to get through the holes to make the tackles. They're not a room. I do think we needed depth. I like the addition of Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham for that reason. I do think we needed depth. And with Nakobe Dean missing a couple of practices already with an ankle, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I think that everything is just set up for the linebackers to succeed without having this hefty level of expectation and responsibility.
Travis, you tell me, you kind of the scout here, like you like one of the more knowledgeable college football fans that we have on the panel here. Tell me about Nakobe Dean. Was he fragile in college? Did he miss a lot of games, or is this just like something freak that we're talking about?
Not really. I mean, he played a pretty big part in Georgia's 2021 national championship season. He was really healthy that season. He didn't really miss a lot of time, and really, I think it was right before the draft. They just kind of had him like a guy where they kind of just made that up, like he really wasn't doing too well in physicals, and that was part of the reason why he was dropping down the board. But I think the ankle injury, that's just something that can happen to anybody. You start getting more reps after you really didn't see a lot of reps last year. It just is something that can happen, and definitely better to see it now than once he starts getting reps in the regular season.
Right. And Jai, you going with the same 6 linebackers we picked? Dean, Dean, Reddick, Smith, Ellis, Jack, Cunningham. I keep missing one. I keep missing.
Morrow was the one you missed there.
Morrow.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's the 6.
Yep.
Rolling with that.
Yep.
What about you, Brandon? Thoughts?
I mean, it kind of goes back to like stuff we talked about on previous episodes, like to the Nicholas Morrow point. If the Eagles aren't satisfied with him, they aren't satisfied with, Nakobe Dean and the progress he's making and the role they potentially want him to play on the defense, like a Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham signing. No, they're not going to be these earth-shattering signings that immediately give you superstar level linebacker play. But these guys are veterans that have played very well when they've been on the field, and if not very well, they've been at the very worst serviceable. They haven't been complete liabilities out there. They're sure-handed. They can make the tackles. And, we've talked about it in the sense with Nakobe Dean, but it really goes for any linebacker on the roster. As long as they're not a complete liability and they can just do what's in front of them and make the plays they need to, the Eagles' front defensive line is going to take care of the rest. The tackles are going to be there. You just have to make the tackles. And obviously pass coverage stuff, that's a different story. Is Morrow better than Jack and Cunningham? In that aspect, that's something we're going to have to see in preseason action and see, how these guys fit within the rest of the defense. But considering you don't have to make cutdowns yet, considering where the rosters are at, it's only a good thing to add more competition in order to make that best linebacker room possible, instead of just being like, oh no, Nicholas Morrow and Nakobe Dean aren't doing how we thought they were. Oh well, let's not make an addition.
To me, I think that's the right way to think about it. I don't have them carrying six linebackers. I think that this is super duper bad news for Nicholas Morrow, because like he's not guaranteed any money, so his ass is in the jackpot. Like he's the one who's going to, if somebody's getting cut, I think it's going to be him. I don't think this was a depth play, and I think, was that Nick that even said that they picked up these 2 extra guys just for competition. I feel like if he wanted to say depth, he would have said depth, but I think this is not boding well for Nicholas Morrow, because it seems like the tide might be turning on him.
I was a little hopeful more at the beginning when they picked him up, but from what we hear in training camp, he hasn't really stood out.
Right.
It is what it is. I don't have a horse in that race. I'll tell you what, the linebackers are going to be what I'm focused on the most once preseason actually starts, right? Because we always talk about the middle linebacker and being the quarterback of the defense, but linebackers are in general, when it comes to stopping the run game, is kind of more like the running back, right? Because you need to see the hole, at least in our scheme. You have to see the hole, and I need you to attack it. I need you to fill that gap efficiently and quickly to stop the run right there before it gets going. So I'm going to be looking for the aggression from the linebackers to attack those holes that the defensive line is going to open up.
Right.
Good job. All right. So y'all tell me, you guys have probably seen a lot more of these guys. I know Zach Cunningham had like 164 tackles like in 2020. I think that led the league, or was right at the top of something of that nature. I'm going to say he led the league. Don't kill me if that's wrong. But he played for the Houston Texans. Miles Jack played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The only time I watched Jacksonville was when Doug Peterson showed up. I watched them a little bit when they were good, when they had like Mark Brunell and they had those guys the 14-2 years. I saw some of them in 2017 when they made the AFC Championship game. The only reason I watched them then was because they made the AFC Championship game. So I went back and watched them then. But I knew they had like some great players and everything with like Jalen Ramsey, guys we're going to end up eventually leaving by the time it was time for them to sign their first contract and stuff. But I don't know a lot about Miles Jack. I definitely don't know a lot about Zach Cunningham. So just so I'm good, y'all let me know, are we overvaluing these guys at all?
I'm not a Miles
Jack. Because I'm thinking like, they were unemployed until like today.
Right, but so was Sue and Linville Joseph last season before we picked them up, right? It's all about the scheme fit. And again, they're not going to be asked to carry a heavy load, just get in there, make some damn tackles when they come your way, because they're coming your way, and you're not going to have many blocks to shed. So just go in there, make tackles. Like I believe it was Jake who mentioned how both those guys are pretty short-handed tacklers. So that's just going to benefit, the defense, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah,
all right.
They're not spectacular guys. I mean, yeah, just because you have a whole lot of tackles, so did Alex Singleton. It's like that doesn't make you good. But again, we're not asking for good. We're asking for hold down the fort.
Exactly.
All right, Travis, I'm putting the pressure back on you again. Again, excellent 53-man roster projection. I'm going to go out on a limb here, fellas. I'm going to go ahead and say that the starting lineup is going to be Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson. That's brilliant analysis, right?
That's hot. That's a hot take.
Yeah.
You don't think Brett Toth is going to take over for center?
I'm going to give you a 6. I'm going to go say Tyler Steen makes this team. And so we got 6 guys. Remaining on the offensive line, we got Tyrese Robinson, Sue Opeta, Brett Toth, Dennis Kelly, Julian Good-Jones, Cameron Tom, Josh Andrews, something called Chim Okorafor. He must have been an undrafted guy. I actually forgot he was on the team. So, okay, that's your offensive line. So, if I'm not mistaken, Travis, you had 10 guys on the offensive line that you had on. Finish the rest of this up. You got Josh Seals back, legal trouble over. So he's back with us, made the team last year, one of 3 undrafted free agents. Dennis Kelly, who I think is broken down, but everybody seems to love because we're getting nostalgic. And I'm wondering your take. Are you adding any of those guys to the 10, and who you think is going to make this roster as far as like offensive line?
Yeah, something that stuck out to me is if we're bringing Josh Stills back, if we fell down.
Uh-oh.
The team's got to like him. And, with guys who get in that situation, sometimes you see him just kind of get cut as soon as anything troublesome comes up. But it's kind of telling that we've held on to him, and I think he's definitely got a chance to make the roster as a backup guard. And I think I had 10 offensive linemen because that's what the Eagles did last year going into the season. And I think if Cam Jurgens is going to play right guard, I think Cam Tom is a guy who could be potentially a backup center because he's got some center flexibility.
They like him.
We do really like Jurgens at right guard and want to keep him there if, God forbid, something happens to Kelsey. And also Jack Driscoll filling in as the opposite backup tackle along with Tyler Steen. I think that makes a lot of sense too because he's a guy that we've put in to start in a couple situations when we got to throw him in games. And I don't remember who I had as the other guard. I think it was Jack Anderson I put in there as the last guard in. I'm not a big fan of Sua Opeta. I think there's definitely room for improvement there, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone outperformed him in training camp. But, hopefully we have more of a year like we did last year with the offensive line and not like it was in 2020 where we can't get a starting five to repeat until week 13 or 14.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Sua Opeta, I'm with you that I'm not a fan. I'm not a big fan, but I did hear that in a one-on-one drill he beat Jalen Carter, and I just don't want to hear that. I want Jalen Carter. You need to be dominating Sua Opeta. So I mean, do with that what you will. I don't know. Anybody wants to address Kyle Brown's question? How serious is Nakobe Dean's ankle injury? From what I hear, he's day-to-day. That's
what they're always going to tell us. The real answer is nobody knows. But if it was something serious, I think we'd have heard stuff about MRIs and things of that nature by now, which we have not.
Yeah, nobody's seen him in a boot yet, and that's good.
Yep. Nobody's seen him in a boot. They never tell us anything, and Nick Sirianni likes to keep all the cards close to his chest, and he keeps secrets that probably don't even need to be secrets, but they're that secretive about everything. But I think it's precautionary more than anything. He's going to be a starting middle linebacker by the time we kick off the season. I don't expect to see him at all during the preseason or anything of that nature. So Dean's going to be fine. Now, I like the Dennis Kelly thing. Like, so we gave the starting lineup. We said Tyler Steen. I like Dennis Kelly a lot, too. I'm thinking he has, like, swing backup tackle vibes, which may be a problem for Jack Driscoll. And I've actually seen Jack Driscoll play every position along the line except for center and things of that nature. But I like Jack Driscoll a lot, so you can't rule him out because we know that the greatest Jeff Stoutland loves versatility. And the more things that you can do, the better, chance you have of making a roster. But Dennis Kelly's somebody he's familiar with. We forget he actually came in with Jason Kessler and those guys. So somebody they're very familiar with. They're close with him. He's close with Jeff Stoutland. He's close with Jason Kelsey. And should anything happen to Jordan Mailata, because I thought the shoulder injury was more serious than we said at the beginning of the year last year. We know Lane Johnson is excellent, but Lane Johnson has sustained some injuries. Thankfully, the one last year didn't keep him out for an extended period of time or during the playoff run. But Dennis Kelly's probably on the roster. I'm with you guys. I've never been much of a Sua Opeta guy, but I think I like Brett Toth a little bit better than Sua Opeta. So that's just me. But if I was going to go 10, I'd say Mailata, Dickerson, Kelsey, Steen, Johnson, Jurgens, Kelly, Toth. I'm going to go ahead and go with Seals because he made the roster last year.
I mean,
it's also like who cares? We'll see about 10. That's what I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah,
between Brett Toth and Sua Opeta, that's like asking me mustard or mayonnaise. I don't like either, and I'm just gonna bow out. You know what I'm saying?
It's good. It's good that we have to focus on who's going to be that number 9 and 10, where there are other teams that are like, who's going to be our number 4. Like it's not a bad problem to have.
All right. So we cool on roster? We good?
Oh yeah.
All right. Moving along. Our resident stand-up comedian. Those of you who don't know that Jake is actually a professional comedian and does a good job at it.
Yeah. He's a hack.
Jake also put together a list of nightmare scenarios for the 2023 season. One of which you go ahead and explain this to me, buddy. What kind of shape are we in if did you say the return guy, the crash dummy, dummy?
Yeah. One of my nightmare scenarios that I wrote was, let me make sure that I'm getting this all right and have all the numbers right. All right. So one of them was that Britton Covey ends the season as the leading wide receiver or pass catcher. All right. Because this is very like the whole thing I wrote about is that if it's a nightmare, if it's reminiscent of any part reminiscent of the 2020 season, because that was hell for everybody. And in that season, Travis Fulgham, a guy nobody had ever heard of that got signed off of the practice squad, ended up being the leading receiver that we remember, who was great for about 4 or 5 weeks, 539 yards. He was the leading wide receiver for the Eagles in 2020. To put that in perspective, A.J. Brown last year with 1,496 yards. So that's, that's big.
Neck and neck. Neck and neck.
Right. Very, very, very comparable, those two fellas. So nightmare scenario number one. And one thing I wanted to take out of it, nightmare scenario obviously would be season-ending injuries for any of these incredibly important guys. So we took that out of it. Now, in 2020, there were not a lot of season-ending injuries for the wide receiver core, but there was a lot of the injuries where people were just like, oh, that guy's going to miss 3-4 just like significant time. So nightmare scenario would be Britton Covey ends the season as a leading wide receiver. And I guess it can be, you can extrapolate that a little bit. It's really if it's anybody other than A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, or Dallas Goedert being the leading pass catcher. If you want to put this into perspective, there are 13, maybe it's 12 guys now that could be pass catchers, that could be a leading pass catcher. Those guys would be Britton Covey, Quez, Olamide Zaccheaus, Devin Allen, Joseph Ngata, Tyree Cleveland, Deion Kane, Charleston Rainbow's not here anymore, Greg Ward, Jadon Hazelwood, Dan Arnold, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra. That's tough.
I'm liking it, those options.
That's a lot of names.
That is a lot of names. And those guys together, if you put all of their yardage last year together, now there are some guys that are rookies on there, but together last year, those guys got a cumulative of 1,254 receiving yards.
Ooh, that's fun.
So, nightmare scenario, Britton Covey is the number one receiver on the team. I feel like that's fair. I feel like that is a night sweat terror right there.
I'm worried because I remember just a couple years ago, Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson got hurt.
Yeah.
If anything, Devontae seems to be pretty durable, despite the fact that, he's like 15 pounds. But Devontae seems to be pretty durable. AJ, we've seen have trouble in the past, and we've seen him get up slow last year, but he seems to be pretty solid and things of that nature. But, man, if you lose either one of those guys or both of those guys, the drop-off to the next two is, like, really bad. And then when you get past those guys, is damn near awful. Like, where you get on that, B-Pop?
Yeah, so my first one, the one I'm going to say is, it's kind of similar to that one, but it would basically be the offense either regresses to the mean or takes a step back from where they were last year. And what do I mean by that? So looking at Jalen Hurts first, it would be, maybe the passing yardage comes down a little bit, the touchdowns stay the same, come down a little bit, the turnover number goes up. Maybe A.J. Brown goes from almost 1,500 receiving yards to like 1,100, 1,200. Devonta Smith around only like 1,000, where you have the offense sort of regress to the mean and it's more mistake prone. It's not as high powered. What does that do? That probably means you're leaning more onto your defense and you're probably in more tightly contested games. Is that exactly a nightmare scenario? Probably not, but it's not an ideal one. Because if you're having Jalen Hurts regress, if you're having the offense as a whole regress, it's showing basically a few different things, or could show a few different things in the sense of, was Steichen way more important to this offense than people thought? Is Hurts not really this upper echelon quarterback because X, Y, and Z happened in 2022 but didn't happen in 2023? Can A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith ever reach those levels, or is that their capped out ceiling? Like, there's different stuff that goes into it where it's not exactly like run for the hills nightmare scenario, but it's a scenario where going forward, it poses a lot more questions for the Eagles as a whole if that happens, and it may start to make things look like, okay, there are a few cracks here that we didn't actually think were here before.
Okay. Travis, you want to go first?
Yeah, so something that was a really big nightmare scenario to me, flipping onto the defensive side of the ball, was the secondary. You got Darius Slay and James Bradbury. They're both older than 30 now going into this season, and they're not getting any younger. And just looking at the cap hit they carry, like the cap hit for Darius Slay is over $10 million for each of the next 2 years. And if something happens to him and we got to get rid of him, his dead cap for this season is $46 million, and his dead cap for 2024 is going to be 36 or 35 million. And then James Bradbury, he's a little bit cheaper. He's only counting 4.8 against the cap this in 2024 and 3 million this year. But still, if he needs to get cut, something happens with him, his dead cap for this season is $20 million, and his dead cap next year is $17 million. And we've seen secondary injuries happen. You know, it's a position that's really, really hard for older guys. You have to see them, you know, a lot of guys convert to safety when they get older. They can't keep up with the young guys, and if something happens there, it could put the Eagles in cap hell for the future.
Yes, indeed. You know, I'm gonna actually build off of that a little bit. I'm with you, cousin Travis. The defense is what I'm more concerned about taking a step back. I find it hard to believe that the offense is going to struggle. Yes, if somebody gets hurt in the, you know, from our wide receiver core, that of course would be horrendous. But I'm more concerned about the defense and taking that step back without anybody getting injured, you know, because we talked before, the secondary pieces and Bradbury and Slay are getting older. A lot of the sacks last year we had came because we were able to lock down the offensive receivers. You know, those guys weren't open. Quarterback had to hold the ball. Defensive line got there. We lost Javon Hargrave, secondary a little bit older. If the defense struggles and can't get guys off the field, now the offense can't get on the field, and then they may start pressing at different times as well, and it can be catastrophic for both sides of the ball based on just the regression of the defense. So that's what I'm considering a nightmare scenario. One more thing I want to ask you guys is, why do we struggle every year to get a good return man, right? Like Britton Covey, like when's the last time we had a truly dynamic guy who could go get a bunch of yards, like Sproles? Well, he's and then he didn't do kick returns.
Probably
so
Josh Huff before that,
right? And
say what you want to say about Josh Huff. He could house one.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. But like, come on, man. Like, why can't we get a good return man who can catch the ball and has speed and some wiggle? You know, like,
did Jalen Reagor not do it for you?
No, he did not. No, quite the opposite.
Good.
I feel like just return men in general, especially in a era of football where like kick returns and punt returns are kind of like de-emphasized. It's kind of hard to find. Like there's not many teams that even have dynamic ones. You could probably count the amount that are truly like dynamic on one hand. And also the comment speaks to that. Like Howie Roseman is a GM where he's not going to invest in areas where he feels like aren't like the primary positions and like the most worthy positions. Like we see that with linebacker all the time, and evidently return men is something similar. And maybe in a sense of targeting that is if you going towards the future or even like a year, you draft a speedy wide receiver that's more of a depth guy and you just throw him back there in return. Like it doesn't hurt to throw a late round dart throw every year at someone like that. And as a result, you don't need to invest in this primary returner.
And usually it doesn't hurt us a ton until it does, right? Yeah, you see it benefit other teams, whether the Saints in the playoffs years ago or the Chiefs even in the Super Bowl when they get a big return, you know, and it's like, it'd be nice if we had that every now and then.
That was on Aaron Sipos. I'm not giving credit to who was that? Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, but like to that point, like Tony's not a like specified return. He's a very talented wide receiver that's able to that's able to do it. It's not like teams are going out there and investing like in legitimate return men. It's guys that have these traits that teams are like, oh yeah, we'll try you back there at returner.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering at some point you got to throw in like throw on one of these depth corners, like one of these guys with speed. I know that that's been a thing in the past, and I know that some of these guys have. Can't remember. It wasn't Josiah Scott or I remember somebody at some point was there was like a backup corner or safety that we had that returned kicks in college or something like that. It's like I don't know why we're practicing giving refs to AJ Brown. Like maybe we throw somebody back there who we're not thinking of rather than a guy who
you're never gonna see that in a football game.
Yeah, like
at MJ's point, we got some guys that got some wiggle, but not worth risking their health. Like I'd be interested to see Devontae back there. But
that's what I'm saying. Throwing a Zach McPherson, throwing a Josiah Scott, throwing somebody like that or Josh Jobe, somebody like that, see what they can do.
After the year he had last year, y'all wouldn't be willing to see Quez back there?
I don't trust Quez to do anything important.
Yeah, he's going to fumble it.
But I mean, to Brandon's point, it's less important. So I mean,
I feel like he's going to put one on the turf or a fumble somewhere or something like that. Like,
I mean, to the Quez Watkins point, if he loses that number 3 job to Zacchaeus, then I feel like that's definitely more of a possibility.
Yeah, that's fair.
Brandon, so open practice, what I'm hearing is it's hard for me to get into practices, guys. I'm just not gonna lie to you. It's like it's practice. But and they're not gonna show you a whole lot. And with the Eagles practices last for 25 minutes. So but I'm hearing there's this punter battle going on, and this went on for like 15, 20 minutes. Is that right? Or
oh yeah, there was
why is Aaron Sipal still on this team?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like number one, where I was sitting, and this is just a gripe I have with the Eagles in terms of their practice jerseys. If you were sitting anywhere besides the lower level, the Eagles practice jersey numbers are neon. They are a neon green. And one team is wearing green, which is fine. Dark green's fine. The other team had neon numbers on white jerseys. So borderline impossible. And the defense was the neon numbers. Borderline impossible to tell who was on the field, what guys were on the field. And that's probably by design. But to the punter stuff, there was like 10 different sessions. There was just one session of the punters were just like kicking back and forth. And the competition was between like gunners and basically like the offensive special teams, like the return team and the punt coverage team just battling each other. But I mean, the punting, like nothing really stood out to me in that sense. Like, it's not like neither guy looked like they really were getting a ton of hang time. Neither guy looked like they were consistently pinning. There was, I don't even know who the punter was, but there was a really good punt inside like the 5. At least one of them was able to.
He can do that. He can do that in August and September. He just can't do that in January.
Hey, one of them was able to pull it off, but yeah, there was a whole competition between those two, and they didn't really announce who won that. So I guess that's a good or a bad thing. So
they both got second place,
and we all lost.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Sipos is the holder, and Jake Elliott likes him, so we'll see what happens there. So. Another interesting thing that I saw on the site this week. Good job by all of you guys. And for those of y'all who tune in late, you listen to the Inside the Eagles live broadcast. And you can follow us every day, InsideTheEagles.com. I'm sitting here looking. I keep forgetting what X is. Like, I got old.
I did too. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a thing now.
That's a Twitter thing, yeah. So, and then YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell. We appreciate you guys. So, another excellent thing I read on the site this week was some of your work, Jaleel. Bold predictions for Jalen Hurts. And since it's Jalen Hurts' birthday, I figured we could probably wrap this one by talking a little bit about QB1 because the top 10 of the NFL top 100 is being revealed tonight. We haven't seen Jalen yet, which means he's on the list. I don't know why I thought somebody was going to put him in at like 11 or something like that. But these are players' votes that determine this. So we know the players have a lot of respect for him. Have we seen Dak Prescott on the list yet?
Yes.
He was on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly.
He got left off 1 year. I remember that. But
somewhere in the 60s, I want to say, if I remember correctly.
And I'm assuming we haven't seen Joe Burrow, so we're going to see a lot of quarterbacks tonight, right?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts, like 5 of the top 10. No Aaron Donald yet, so he's probably on there.
Yep.
We can probably do this off the top here. Bradley Chubb.
No, Aaron Donald came
Donald was
11.
Yeah,
Oh, he's 11. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've not seen Bradley Chubb?
No.
Chubb?
I don't think so. He's probably in the top 10.
Nick Chubb?
No, we've seen Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb, not Nick Chubb. What's the Myles Garrett? I don't know why I'm saying Bradley Chubb.
Yeah.
It's Cleveland. Nobody cares.
Bradley Chubb was the other edge rusher.
Yeah, I'm just thinking Cleveland. I'm thinking orange helmet. They got an alternate white helmet now, which I'm not gonna. It's gonna be hard for me to get used to that looking at the Cleveland Browns with a white helmet. But so Myles Garrett is who I meant. So my bad on that. But to your point earlier, though, Travis, we were talking about Darius Slay and stuff like that. What's your fears about regression for him? Because I think you're the only person that haven't asked this question, but you look pretty good at the beginning of the season, trailed off at the end. Are we starting to see some regression that's going to continue, or is he going to bounce back and have a better year this year and look more consistent throughout the year?
For Darius Slay, I mean, hopefully he stays consistent this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it was almost a similar thing where he starts the season really good and it's just in his old age, kind of attrition sets in later in the year and he gets fatigued and he kind of starts to wear down a little bit. And definitely might be his guy that you see if the Eagles are in a spot where they can rest players. He'd probably be one of the first names they can rest. But hopefully, you always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
I want to pull this back a little bit too, because we see it all the time about how Darius Slay fell off in the back half of the season, and I feel like it's gotten to a point where it's almost slanderous. It wasn't that bad. He was just playing at such a high level early and we have such high standards that we did notice that he took a step back. But if it was as bad as it seems like people are making out to be, he would have been attacked all the time, and we would have given up a lot, way more in terms of points and yardage than we did. So it may have not been what it was early, but it wasn't like he went from being top 5 to bottom whatever. It wasn't that horrible. I think we're overblowing the step back just a little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely not like a Nolan Carroll guy. We definitely got to remember where we came from a little bit with the guys in the secondary. And even if they're a little old and don't play 17 phenomenal games, they're still a lot better than what we had just 3 or 4 seasons ago.
Way better.
Fair enough. All right, well, Jaleel, you put the spotlight on yourself. No pressure, but how about some bold predictions for Jalen Hurts? The whole world is watching. Don't screw this up.
Well, I'm the best player in the NFL. So we talk about MVP last year. He was second in MVP voting. Should have been first, but okay, they said Dak was 56. That was close. I said in the 60s. But understand that best player in the NFL and MVP are two different things, right? But I expect him to achieve both. During the years where Aaron Rodgers was winning the MVP, Aaron Donald was the best player in the league. Aaron Donald is no longer the best player in the league. Still amazing, but I expect Jalen to be the one to take that step forward because of the improvements that we do see every year. We talk about, in the beginning, we talked about his mindset, his willingness to win, and the work that he puts in all the time. Those things are Tom Brady-esque. Okay, yes, I invoke the name of the great Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Okay, so because we're just talking about work ethic, and he has that. He has the desire to improve. He has the accountability to put it on his shoulders, but he has the trust in his team, right? And when you put all of those things together, I think it's going to bode well for him this season. I expect even improved decision-making, improved calls at the line, better reads for the against the defense. And it's consistency, the consistency of doing all the little things while still making those splash plays and scoring in the run game and more passing touchdowns. I think that will give him what he needs to be labeled as the best player in the NFL this year.
I can dig it. If he won the Super Bowl, he was the best player in the Super Bowl. And if we score 4 more points, we're talking about him totally differently right now. But great guy, great leader. I have no complaints about Jalen Hurts going forward. So I know this is your segment right here, Jaleel, but I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off and everything. You guys can rip this apart all you want to, but I'm going with it. I'm going all the way. I'm all in. I'm taking the Optimus Prime. Jalen Hurts, 12 to 13 wins this season. He starts all 17 games. 4,000 yards passing for the first time in his career, 30 touchdowns. Deal with it. Less running. He's got Swift. He's got Rashad Penny. Kenneth Gainwell's back there. We'll use Boston Scott for 2 games, even though we should probably use him for more because I like Boston Scott a whole lot more than everybody else does. But less running for Jalen Hurts. Maybe a few quarterback sneaks here. Less draws. More passes to the running backs. I think Coach Nick Sirianni, I think he trusts Kenneth Gainwell in the passing game. Every time I see them doing a 2-minute offensive drill, when I've seen it, I haven't seen all of them, but every time I see it, Kenneth Gainwell's in there. He trusts him. We know DeAndre Swift can talk about the football, and Brandon did an excellent job of talking about how he looks like a wide receiver anyway. So less passes, less runs, less design runs, a few passes to the running backs. Plays all 17 games as a result. 12 wins. Maxes out at 13 wins, 13-4. 12-5 is the worst case scenario for this team. And I'm going to say again, 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns because I've already stuck my foot in my mouth and told Jake that we're going to have Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith go over 1,000 yards receiving. Deal with it. It don't get much bolder than that.
You know what I'm saying?
Who's next?
I'll jump in. So I gave my nightmare scenario of Hurts and the offense regressing. I'm going to give my bold prediction now. And honestly, the reality is probably going to be somewhere in the middle. My bold prediction is Jalen Hurts leads the NFL in passing. I think he leads the NFL in passing yards.
I think you might be better than me now.
Like I said, hey, it's going to fall somewhere in the middle. You go high with the bold, you go low with the nightmare scenario, you fall somewhere in the middle, everyone's happy.
Hey, Williams is y'all. Somebody started stuttering. He said,
I just think that, if you really look at it, right, if Goddard, and obviously we talk about this all the time, the Eagles linebackers aren't exactly, quote unquote, a big strength. Not many tight ends in the league that can play like Dallas Goedert, but you have that type of weapon. We all know what A.J. Brown's capable of. We all know what Devonta Smith is capable of. You add in a DeAndre Swift, which gives you a very good weapon out of the backfield, 5 wide sets, where now the defense has to worry about yet another weapon. Zacchaeus is a consistent, consistent number 3, number 4 option. Quez Watkins gives you kind of that ceiling play, right? I think, and this also goes with the bold prediction, I think the Eagles are going to be in a lot more closer games where they're going to have to pass the ball. And let's say the running game isn't as effective for whatever reason. Let's say, Rashad Penny, as much as I've been high on him being a early down in between tackle starter, let's say he either gets hurt or he isn't as effective as everyone wants him to be. The minute that run game starts fading and the passing game looks that good, you're going to see if the offensive philosophy is like that. If it isn't like that right off the bat, you're going to see the flip of more passing than running. And you're going to see the reliance of Hurts, the reliance on A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Goddard, the rest of the weapons. And that's where you see the possibility of 3 separate guys going over 1,000 yards. It's when you see the possibility of Brown and Smith replicating their seasons. That's where the bold prediction comes in, because I don't think the Eagles' run game is going to be ineffective. But if the Eagles get very pass happy and they're very happy with where Jalen Hurts is with his progressions, where he is with how he's running the offense, and ultimately, like I think the most recent comment says, the Eagles are too good. If they're even in 5 closer games than they were last year, how many more yards is that for Hurts? You put that number up to 6 or 7, you're looking at an insanely good, probably one of the best Eagles passing seasons. If the level of play from last year moves up even a little bit and the Eagles are in some closer games.
Shout out to Hunter Doyle, Inside the Eagles alum. dear friend of mine and everything from the Philly Insider podcast, showing us some love. What's up, Hunter? Go ahead. Whoever's got the mic. I'm
gonna go. It's everything that you guys have covered. It's all the same idea where closer games and everything. You want bold, baby. I'll give you bold. Jalen Hurts never thrown for over 400 yards in a game. 3 times this year. He does it 3 times this year. I'm going to tell you what games he does it. He does it. What is that? Week 8. Oh. Week 8 against the Dolphins. Does it week 8 against the Dolphins. He shows up Tua. He does that in week 11 against the Chiefs. The Chiefs in 2021 was the game that he's had the most passing yards, which was 387 in that game. And then he follows it up by going back-to-back 400-yard games. Again, bold, baby, against the Bills at home in week 12.
Short week, too.
I'm here for it.
He's going to have a sore arm. Man's going to have a sore arm, but he's going to – you want bold. I'm going to call the shots.
Let's go. All right, go ahead, Travis. What you got?
Right, well, what I had for Hurts, Jeff kind of hit the nail on the head earlier, but my biggest expectation, it's not really a bold prediction, hopefully, is that he starts all 17 games and he stays healthy and he doesn't give us any health scares, no AC joint sprain, no ankle injury. And I think with that, a lot of people are expecting him to up his passing stats a lot. But I think just from getting those 2 extra starts or two starts he didn't have each of the last 2 years, I think his rushing numbers will stay right there. I think he'll get over 750 yards rushing, over 10 touchdowns. He might even be 1,000 yards rushing. It's something that he's definitely capable of doing, especially if we do see those shootout games you saw in the Super Bowl. He took it over. He refused to pass the ball. He wanted to be running in every play, making sure he was fighting for the yards, fighting for the first down, fighting for the touchdown. And I think that's just part of who he is he feels like if he's capable of running and that's how the game can be won, he's going to go do it.
So what you're telling me is the only time we're going to see Marcus Mariota is in like some wildcat, crazy offensive formation. Hurts out on the perimeter.
Marcus Mariota's terrible.
Yeah.
Him holding the clipport,
Marcus Mariota's bad. He's very bad.
Yeah, I want to see Mariota out on the perimeter. Like
even with the neon jerseys, Brandon knew who he was because he was the guy worming everything.
Yeah, trust me. You could tell who Mariota was because when you saw the quarterback spike the ball 2 feet in front of the wide receiver, you're like, "Yep, that's not Hurts."
Love that. I do have one more bold prediction too, and this is not Jalen, but I believe it's very Jalen centric. He gets Jonathan Gannon fired in week 17.
One and done for the new Arizona Cardinals.
I'm telling you, man,
coach?
it's happened the last 2 years with Urban Meyer and with that other guy, that Broncos guy. What's his name? Hackett.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
Gannon's is a joke, man. I just keep watching him. Like, he's more irritating now that he's gone.
Yeah, I think Jalen gets puts the. I think he does it. I think he kills Jonathan Gannon.
They say Gannon is putting in a new culture of accountability over there in Arizona.
Okay. By complimenting Kyler Murray every chance he gets.
Everybody has to be to meetings on time. If you're 1 minute late, there's penalties for everybody.
That's just called having a job. Congratulations, Jonathan Gannon, on revolutionizing employment.
Honestly, he's at a very good high school and college level coach level. So let's see if he can improve from there.
Oh. What a nerd.
And no better way to end it with Marlene Grant. Did we get your bold prediction, Jaleel? Or did you just kick us off?
Yeah. We talked about the Jalen Hurts being the best player.
Yeah. Gotcha. So Marlene Grant's hit the nail on the head. Jalen Hurts is the Fresh Prince of Philly. Happy birthday. Good, because we can retire that Will Smith thing. I can't even watch Will Smith on TV anymore. So everybody to tune in, you know how to do this. InsideTheEagles.com, Inside the Eagles on Facebook, IGGLES. Inside the Eagles on X, Inside the Eagles on YouTube. We appreciate you guys for hanging out on us on a Monday. and those of you who are watching us on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because you know how you guys do. See you again on Friday. We appreciate you.